Hi, everyone. We're going to wait a couple of more minutes for everyone to join, and then we'll start the presentation for tonight. It's going to be a little bit different than the presentation last time. It's going to be much shorter, but really effective. And we'll get started really soon. We're just going to wait a couple of minutes, and hopefully everybody knows where the live chat, where the chat feature is. We're going to be using that a couple of times tonight. So I'm going to get started. Guys, if the sound is good to you guys, can you just put yes in the chat if you can hear me? Well, I just want to make sure that you can hear me. If you can put it in the chat, please. Oh, awesome. Okay. Great. Okay, great. Okay, so there is a little bit of delay, but let's get started. I'm Sarah Ghanaian, and I help people with digestive issues heal their gut and regain their energy. Tonight's talk is going to be on the diet and the microbiome. I'm going to give you an overview of what we're going to cover tonight. I'm going to start by asking everyone a couple of questions. Then I'll talk about the DNA and its relationship to your overall health. Then we cover the microbiome. And then we're going to talk about the 6 most common types of diet in our country. And then we'll end the session by talking about how different diets affect your microbiome. Now, at the end, I'm going to leave about 5-10 minutes for any questions, and I'll try to answer as many questions as you guys have. But I understand that some people may not want to ask questions, so I'm going to leave a link, or if you have any private questions, I'm going to leave a link to my calendar in the chat, and you have a 15-minute complimentary session that you can call, schedule, and I'll answer all your questions there. Okay, so let's get started. If you guys can put the word gut in the live chat, if you've ever struggled with any gut issues or constipation, diarrhea, SIBO, IBS, or anything like that, if you can type in the word gut. Okay, I think there is a little bit of a delay. Okay. Okay, so, all right, so a lot of you. Okay, my second question is if you have any family history of diabetes, obesities, Alzheimer's, cancer, or any predisposition to any genetic disorders. If you can put the word yes in the chat, please. I think there is a little bit of delay. Okay. Okay, so a lot of you. Okay. So I have good news for you guys. Your DNA is not your destiny. We're going to talk about a study that was done at the University of Alberta, and the results were published in 2019. It was a 2-decade studies, and they followed the same people. And at the end, the researchers concluded that genes have less than 5% to do with the risk of developing any particular disorders. Here's the graph, and the red is actually shows you the deaths attributed to genetic disorders, to the genes that were responsible to any particular disorders. So that gives all of us a lot of power and a lot of authority of how to what to do with our lives, what to eat, how to impact our health. Dietary and lifestyle changes have so much to do, so much more to do with if you develop any genetic disorders than your genes. So as they say, while genes load the gun, your lifestyle choices actually pulls the trigger. People say, well, my dad or my grandfather had diabetes, so I have the genes, I'm probably going to develop diabetes. And I always tell them that, true, your dad or grandfather may have had diabetes, but what's in your pantry, it's what's going to cause you to have diabetes or cancers. And research is showing, even with Alzheimer's, so much of everything, all the disorders have to do with what you eat and the lifestyles you lead. And everything is interconnected. Everything in your body is interconnected. So you may see a GI doctor for your IBS or SIBO, or if you're having issues with constipation and diarrhea, and you may see a neurologist for your migraine, and you may see a psychiatrist for anxiety, and not even think that all these diseases and disorders are interconnected and related. But when you start addressing what's going on in your gut, everything else will get better. So, and I've noticed that over and over again. So all diseases begin in the gut. What is so special about the gut? Why do we think that everything starts in the gut? It all goes back to microbiome. And tonight I'm probably going to use the word microbiome and bacteria interchangeably. But what your microbiome actually is, it's a collection of microbes, bacteria, viruses, and fungi living together in the gut. There are 500 different species of them in your gut, and their DNA outnumbers human DNA 100 to 1. So we have a lot more bacteria. We're a lot more bacteria than human cells, and we need to take care of those bacteria. Those bacteria do a lot of stuff for us. They digest our food, they make vitamins, they control our hormones and our immunity and the inflammation in the body. Now, we have both good bacteria and bad bacteria, and we need them both. We need both good bacteria and bad bacteria, but the problem arises when the good bacteria and the bad bacteria are not in balance. When there is an imbalance of bacteria in your gut, we refer to that as dysbiosis. And dysbiosis can lead to SIBO, IBS, Alzheimer's, obesity, cancer, diabetes, inflammation, and a whole lot of autoimmune disorders. So it's really important to take care of your gut microbiome and making sure that it stays in balance. Now, the study of microbiome, it's in its early stages. I remember I said this last time. It's amazing to me because in 2017, I was researching the microbiome, and I put the word microbiome in the search engine, and I only got about 3,000 hits. Now, I did this just a little bit ago, and I got about 50,000 hits, like about 5-6 months ago. So the field is exploding, and there is a lot of information coming out daily. There is a lot that can affect your gut microbiome, and I covered all those factors last time. So this time, I'm only going to focus on the diet part and that's one of the biggest factors that affect your microbiome is the diet. And tonight, I'm actually going to only cover 6 of the most popular diets in our country. We're going to start with the ketogenic diet, then move on to the paleo, Mediterranean, specific carbohydrate diet, DASH, and the standard American diet. Let's talk about the ketogenic diet. Ketogenic diet is very trendy right now. Everybody's on the keto diet, but the diet is actually one of the oldest diets. It goes back to the 1920s, and it was used to prevent frequency of epileptic seizures. In the 1940s, it gained some grounds in treating schizophrenia and bipolar. So it's a diet that's been around for a long time. And these days, people use it to lose weight or to control their insulin levels. But the diet has been around for a long time. Now, there are different kind of keto diet. There is the hardcore keto that most people are familiar with. That's when 75% of your diet is good fats, emphasis on good fats. There is the cyclic keto where if you're a woman in your fertile years, you can go in and out of keto diet, or you can be on a keto diet for 5 days and 2 days of a regular diet. There is the targeted keto when you increase your amount of carbohydrate right before a workout. So there are all different kinds of keto diets. Most people use the hard keto. And so that's what I'm going to emphasize on tonight. That's the diet I'm going to talk about tonight. Now, there are many good things about the keto diet. Obviously, it helps with preventing epileptic seizures. You can use it to treat some mental disorders. If you need to lose weight quickly, it's a good diet to have, and it restricts sugar intake. The things that are not so great about the keto diet, it's not safe for everyone. If you're a woman in your fertile years, you need to be careful with this diet. It can affect your hormones. You may feel fatigue if you go on the diet for the first 2 weeks, and you may have bad breath. It can cause nutrient deficiency, and we'll see later how it affects your microbiome. But the thing that is the most difficult about the keto diet, it's that it's very, very difficult to maintain. You can stay on it for a short period of time, but it's a tough diet to maintain. The next diet we're going to cover tonight is the paleo diet. Now, this diet is rooted in the fact that our caveman ancestors had a great diet for optimal health. What I like about this diet is that it has a whole foods approach. It encourages organic foods. It encourages taking low glycemic foods. It's high in fiber. So there are a lot of good things about this diet. The things that are not so great about the diet is the high quality meat, like regenerative, organic raised meat, can be expensive. Some people actually do well on carbs. I've worked people that need carbs. They do well on carbs. And it's not ideal for vegetarians and vegans because of the high amount of the meat and the poultry and fish involved. The next diet we're going to cover, it's the Mediterranean diet. That's a diet that people in the blue zone use. And blue zone refers to the areas of the world where people live the longest, where your health span, your lifespan equals your health span. which means you're going to be healthy till you die. Whereas America, the last decade of your life, and sometimes even the last 2 decades, you're not really healthy. You struggle with a lot of health issues. But Mediterranean, people in the blue zone don't deal with that. And it's also a diet that a lot of family practitioners recommend. Most doctors are familiar with this diet. I love that it can be lifestyle based and it's very sustainable. You can be social with this diet. However, what I don't like about it that some people need a more strict diet. They need more firmer guidelines to follow the diet. So you wouldn't be able to take advantage of this diet if you can't put limit on your intake. Also, because alcohol and coffee is allowed on this diet, you need to have willpower to know the amount of the alcohol and the coffee that you take. But overall, it's a great diet because it doesn't have a lot of processed foods or refined foods. So that makes it a great diet. The next diet I'm going to talk about is the specific carbohydrate diet, or SCD. Now, you can see that I haven't listed any foods on foods to take or foods to avoid. That's because the list is really long and very complicated. It's available online, and a good book to refer to on this diet is Breaking the Vicious Cycle. Now, I personally have a lot of experience with this diet. As I said in my last talk, my son, the reason that I got into this field to begin with, had a lot of issues, digestive issues that the doctors couldn't figure out and treat. And we did so much testing. We went through a year of testing and we couldn't figure it out. So I was able to implement a much stricter form of the specific carbohydrate diet about 20 years ago. I didn't know what it was called then, but now I know it was a more stricter form of the specific carbohydrate diet. It's a very based on personal experience. I can tell you that it's a very difficult diet to implement. It can be very intimidating and definitely difficult to stick to, and it's very socially isolating. So you need to make sure that you have a support group or you work with somebody. If you're implementing this diet, you need that support, that accountability to go on. The great thing about this diet is that it can heal your digestive issues. It's a great diet. It's very hard to stick to, but it can be used as treatment for Crohn's disease, for ulcerative colitis, or celiac. It helps with brain fog and chronic fatigue. So overall, it's a very difficult diet to implement, but if you're having issues that you've tried everything else and nothing has worked, this is a really good diet. The next diet is DASH. DASH stands for Dietary Approaches to Stop Hypertension. This, again, is a kind of a whole foods diet. It doesn't restrict any food groups. The idea behind this diet is to take less sodium and increase your magnesium, your potassium, your calcium, and your fiber intake. It's a lifestyle-based, balance-based diet. So it's a pretty good diet to have. The thing that's a little bit difficult about this diet is that you have to have a certain number of daily servings from each food group. So that would make it a bit harder to maintain and to keep track of. But overall, it helps with hypertension. Now, the next diet, I don't have a slide of the next diet because it's the specific American standard American diet, or as they call it, the SAD diet. We're all familiar with that. It's when you have donuts or bagels or cereal for breakfast, and you have fast food, McDonald's, Jack in the Box, Wendy's for lunch. You eat something on the run, and then you have pizza or pasta for dinner. It's ultra processed. low in fiber, high in sugar. I honestly can't think anything what's good about that diet long term, except that it saves time and it's convenient. So if you're working and then you have to pick up the kids and you don't have time to cook, it makes it an easy diet to follow. But in the long term, if you stick to that diet in the long term, it leads to so many issues. All the chronic diseases, how you started if you're on the standard American diet for a long time. So that's definitely not a diet that I recommend anybody follows. Now, when I work with my clients, I always talk about the key tenets of good diets. I've never been on any specific diet myself, and I believe in food freedom. So there are key tenets that I think everybody should follow in order to have a good diet. So what are those key tenets? First, whole foods. It's best to eat whole foods. So if you're eating, just think about it. Did God make it? Was it made in nature? If it was, it's good. No matter what, it's good food. But if it was made in a factory somewhere, think about it twice. I always bring up the example that potatoes could be good for you, but potato chips, not so much. Oranges could be good for you. Orange juice, not so much. So that's something to keep in mind. That whole foods, foods that are not ultra processed, that was made in nature. The second key factor is high fiber. And that's really, really important because our bacteria need the fiber. They live on fiber. If you want to feel good, if you don't want to suffer from anxiety, IBS, fatigue, any of those issues, autoimmune disorders, you need to have a high fiber diet. You also need your diet to be low in sugar. Sugar is the worst drug that we deal with right now. So you need a diet that's low in sugar and it's high in good fats. Now, what are good fats? Good fats are olive oil, avocado, nuts and seeds. So those are what's considered good fats. Coconut oil. Your diet needs to be high in fermented foods. So what are some examples of fermented foods? Yogurt, cottage cheese, not every brand. There are a couple of brands out there that I can think of, like Nancy's, kombucha, kimchi, kefir. So those things that are fermented are really, really good for your gut microbiome. The next factor that you need to consider when having a good diet is diversity. Diversity of the plant in your diet is extremely important. So if you're eating plants, but you're eating broccoli and green beans every day, it's not as great as if you're rotating your vegetables daily or weekly. Even if you're eating carrots, just make sure that like one day you eat the carrots that are orange and one day the carrots that are more tan color. Or if you're eating apples, make sure that you're eating different variety of apples. So that makes a huge difference because your bacteria doesn't know that a red apple and a green apple is apple. They look at it as two different plants. So just make sure to make your diet as diverse as possible. And then the last thing that's really important is the adequate amount of protein. We all need protein in our diet as we age. Some of the causes, one of the biggest causes of aging is sarcopenia. That's when you don't have enough protein in your diet. So you need to make sure to include that. Good sources of lean meat, chicken breast, good red meat, beans, lentils. So you just need to add a lot of proteins in your diet as well. So we covered diets and the microbiome. Now, let's talk about the effects of different diets on the microbiome. There is the American Gut Project is an institute actually in San Diego, California, and they did a testing on 11,000 participants. They asked people to send their stool samples, and then they asked them to fill out some questionnaires, and they divided the participants into 5 groups, not based on any particular food groups, but based on long-term dietary intake. And they divided them into 5 groups: the plant-based, flexitarian, health-conscious American, standard American, and exclusion. The plant-based were mostly the vegetarians and vegans. Flexitarian were the ones that ate a lot of different fruits and vegetables, but they also incorporated meat and dairy products. Health-conscious Americans ate diets rich in nuts and whole grains, but also high in sugar and sweets. The standard Americans, we covered that. And then the exclusion group was mostly the keto and the paleo, but mostly the keto people. And what they found out was that the group that had the flexitarian diet had the best microbiome, the most diverse microbiome. Now, you would have thought that the plant-based, since bacteria, what they need is fiber, you would have thought that the plant-based group would have the best gut microbiome, which goes to show that the bacteria in your gut, some of them do need meat and dairy products. So that's what they found out. That's the conclusion they came up with. And what's really interesting, obviously the standard American diet had the worst gut microbiome. And then what they also found out, which is really interesting, was that the exclusion diet, the one with the restrictive diet, the keto people, had the lowest number of bifidobacteria, which is a very important bacteria in your gut that helps prevent infection, and it's used in treatment of H. pylori. They were low on that. So those were really interesting. And then the conclusion they came up with was that the gut microbiome of the people that had at least 5 servings of fermented food daily and 30 different plants a week. So that's really, really easy to do. I know it sounds daunting, but it's really easy to do. Those are the people that had the best gut microbiome. So I went a little bit over time, but that concludes our talk for tonight. I can take some questions right now. I'm going to put a link to my calendar again. I have saved some 15-minute complimentary consults. So if you have any questions, you can contact me and book a time with me. And also, I'm going to leave my email address there. So if you have any feedback or any topics that you would like me to cover, if you can put it in if you can email me, I'll make sure if there is high interest in a topic, I will cover that. Okay, now you guys, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. You can, I know there's a slight delay, but I'm just gonna read the questions in the chat now. Yes, Nora, when I say gut, that does refer to the whole GI tract. There shouldn't be as much bacteria in your small intestine. It's your small intestine supposed to be more sterile. So there are some bacteria, but not as much. So that's supposed to be a sterile area. And when the bacteria move from your colon up to your small intestine, actually there is a condition called SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. But when I refer to the gut, yes, I do refer to all that. How can we reestablish a healthy gut microbiome, and how long does that process take? Well, that depends about with the issues that you have. Your gut microbiome, it depends how bad it is. Your bacteria, it overturns. You can change your gut microbiome as low as in 3 days. But if you're dealing with a lot of issues, it could take longer to deal with that. But yes, you definitely can make your gut microbiome better. What people eat to maximize the well, you can take some probiotics to do that, but also if you have a diverse Martin, your question was, what do people eat to maximize the bifidobacterium? If you eat a diverse diet like how the flexitarians did, and then also there are probiotics with the bifidobacterium in it. How to live with diverticulitis. Well, that a lot of dietary changes could help. Dietary changes and lifestyle changes could definitely help to deal with diverticulitis. So the SAD appears to be a better option, but what if you're pre-diabetic? Standard American diet. The SAD. So what do you mean the SAD would be a better option? I'm sorry, I don't get that question. The SAD diet, better option in relation to what? Are you talking about the SCD or the standard American diet? Because I don't recommend the standard American diet, especially if you're pre-diabetic. What is the best diet for diabetic and cholesterol? So the key tenets of a good diet, what I talked about, is a good diet for diabetes and cholesterol. If you eat more whole foods, if you increase your good fats, and if you increase your fiber intake, those are good diets for diabetic and cholesterol. Martin. American Gut Project. So you can look it up. The last one was done by the American Gut Project, their last study. So, okay. I'm sorry. So the question was the standard American diet to be that's not a good option. I don't believe the standard American diet is a good option if you're pre-diabetic. Yes, there are testing. There is, you can look into, are there any tests that can test your gut microbiome and make healthy recommendation on the basis of your results? There are tests that you can do. GI map testing is a good test that you can do. And then also Thorne has come up with some tests that you can do. Thorne company has come up with some testing that you can do it actually yourself. But the GI map, your doctor can order GI map testing for you to be established. Does your microbiome need to be reestablished in a particular way after a colonoscopy? Well, after a colonoscopy, if you have a diet high in fiber, that probably would help you with reestablishing. And then eating a lot of probiotics, eating like food, like a lot of good cheeses and yogurt and kefir, and then also eating a lot of fiber that can reestablish your microbiome after a colonoscopy. 5%. Well, yeah, Nora said if one is on a diverse and fiber-rich diet, are there any supplements still necessary? I take a lot of supplements, but as I was telling a client yesterday, you can't supplement your way out of a bad diet, which doesn't seem like you're talking about. But I like to give targeted supplements. So if I know exactly what you need, I can probably recommend some supplement. I have started on probiotics. I used to. Yes, I take Thorne products myself, and I only sell Thorne products on my website, and you can get 10% off. Actually, right now I'm running a 10% discount on a Thorne product, but that's what I use myself too. Yes, Sanam, I recommend a Thorne probiotics. So, okay, I think we're running over time. Um, if you have any more questions, what are the effects of artificial sweeteners on the gut? So the artificial, you want to decrease the number of bad bacteria, and what artificial sweeteners do is that they increase the number of bad bacteria in your microbiome, and that leads into dysbiosis. So I would definitely stay away from artificial sweeteners. Is that possible? That's a more complicated question, and I can answer that. If you make is it possible to establish biome after some pollen? That's a more complicated question, so I can answer that one-on-one. If you like to take advantage of the 15-minute consult, I can answer that then. Okay, so if you guys, I think we're past our time. If you guys have any questions, take advantage of the 15 minutes complimentary consult. And you can also email me with your feedback and suggestions on future topics. Yes, alcohol will definitely impact the gut bacteria, but as I always tell my clients, anything in moderation should be good because you still need to live. But if you're drinking alcohol every night, that's not good for your gut microbiome. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.